This is Fishing World's On The Sauce. I'm Zach Panarados, caught straight from the dead horse, seeing food through the lens of some of Australia's best restaurateurs, chefs and industry's finest who love fishing just like me. We find out their processes from the ocean right the way through the kitchen and everything in between. Let's sink our teeth in. Saturday afternoon, doing some cryovacing, letting this fish extend its shelf life, maybe 5 times as longer. There's even rumours of it lasting a couple of years in the freezer. So it should be a part of every fisho's arsenal. Bit of test cricket in the background. This episode's great because we don't just talk about cryovacing. We also look at methods that you can use of cooking in the bag, sous vide, and also we touch on some things you probably haven't thought about, like defrosting and how that can impact all the hard yards you've done. Looking after your fish, you can just spoil it with poor defrosting techniques. So wrap your ears around this one. G'day, Matt. How you going?
Yeah, good. How are you, Zach?
Oh, not too bad. Sensational day out here. The cicadas are humming, so that means surface water bass fishing's coming on. But yeah, Bellingham River, that's where we're at.
Yeah, sounds good.
Where are you, in a warehouse right now? What are you doing?
Oh, in the warehouse. Yeah, I'm in the conference room. So got the bags around me and the vacuum sealers around me. So the demo room, really. So
wow, that sounds official.
yeah.
What's your role at Pac Food then?
Sales. So I'm a sales rep. So selling vacuum sealing bags, the vacuum sealers, for any food packaging really, like meal trays as well, tray sealers. We more specialize in the disposable side of things.
Yeah, okay. Well, like today we're really focusing in on vac sealing in particular. You've got a bunch of different ones. I got the VS603, which is semi-industrial, and I've been testing that. There's a little review coming out on the Fishing World website, and that thing is a machine. That thing, like compared to the one I used before, which was like a $100, which would sort of be cheapish in the scheme of things. This thing does a far better job, and it can. It's just a bit of a workhorse. So it's definitely a big upgrade for the one that I had. But I've been back sealing my fish for a long, long time. Do you want to just jump into it and just give us some of the benefits around vac sealing your fish?
Yeah. So basically, in essence, vacuum sealing removes the air from the bag. So basically, oxygen exposes the meats to microorganisms and bacteria. So it makes the bacteria really just grow. So the main thing you get out of vacuum sealing is prolonging shelf life. So especially when you put it in the freezer. So especially when it's below the negative 17 degrees. It doesn't kill the microorganisms, but it stops them from growing. So that gives you a really good shelf life, especially of the fish. So
so just removing that air, it makes it these beautiful little packages that you can use and store in your freezer. I portion them, and I sometimes portion them based on what I will be cooking. Sometimes if like it's a skinny long fish, I might cut them into lengths ready for fish tacos, or I might do full fillets, whatever. But whatever I freeze, it's enough for, say, a small dinner party or a family meal. And it's great to be able to just pull out your vacuum sealed pouches and know that that's exactly enough for what you need. And it removes a lot of the need for wasting of that fish.
Yeah, especially the food waste, because that's has very negative impacts on the environment as well. When the food rots and the methane and it just causes a lot of pollution. It's just not good. But it also saves quite a lot of storage in your freezer instead of big bulky containers. So
that's really true. My mate Finn dropped me off a big kingy the other day, which he speared, and I used the vac sealer to do a bunch of different packages. And I actually thought, okay, what can I do here that will actually minimize waste? And I cooked the head whole, as I've been doing for a while. I vac sealed the wings, and that was fantastic. I vac sealed a bunch of different fillets, but I also thought, okay, what else can I not waste here? And there's a few little offcuts that I got, and I just put them into a bowl, and I also spooned out all the meat between like the rib cages and the spine, and I put that into a bowl and I vac sealed that, which I can use for fish cakes or burgers. And then I
Yeah.
also even went to the extent of cutting the bloodlines out. They're like a long red strip, which is always discarded, and it's got bones in it as well. And I just froze them to use as baits because it is literally the best bait you can get. And so if you're going to vac seal some really high quality baits, or maybe, I don't know, maybe you got a couple of live baits that you're using when you go fishing and they die, instead of just throwing them back in the water, you can use them for the next time you go fishing to have your bait organized. So it's, again, like instead of buying bait, it's ready. It saves time for your next fish, but it's a really good way of just reducing waste. If you're going to take these animals, we want to get as much as possible from them. So yeah, vac sealings. If you're not using them, it's got to be part of every fisho's arsenal.
Exactly. Yeah, we even have stories of people taking the vacuum sealer on the boat with them and connecting up to a power point, and they catch the fish straight. They vacuum seal it straight away, and they chuck it in like an esky with the ice straight away.
Wow.
So they gut it, and then they just chuck it in straight away to in the vacuum sealer in the 603 on the boat, and then they chuck it in the esky with ice.
Yeah.
So they really
the benefits about that vac sealer is it wasn't too big as well. I thought something that was going to be that powerful would have to be something that you couldn't really transport around, but it's pretty much the same size as the a cheaper one that I had, and yeah, it's got quite a good punch to it. Um, I love how when you seal it, it does like this extra little suck at the end, and then it just like the air just pops out of it. It's yeah, good.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's great. Yeah, we've had a lot of good, really a lot of positive feedback, especially from like mainly fishermen from small restaurants or restaurants who use it. So it's semi-commercial.
What's the benefit in terms of the flavour and texture of a fish, and how long is it going to last if I'm going to vac seal my fish? What's the benefits?
Gets the air out of the bag, well, so the oxygen. So it really reduces the room more or less for the microorganisms or the bacteria to grow, especially when you chuck it in the freezer. So when you chuck it in the freezer, we like a big thing to remember is that the food danger zone is between, so where the bacteria grows is between 5 degrees and 60 degrees. So we recommend really putting in the freezer. So if it's below 17 degrees, it's not going to kill the bacteria, but it's going to stop them from growing. So we've had stories of fishermen telling us, they put a vacuum sealed fish in the freezer for like 2 years, and they chuck it out. It has no freezer burn, and then they defrost it overnight, and then it's like they caught it yesterday. They say like it's just the flavors all in there, and even if they marinate it and freeze it, they love it. So no, yeah.
It's pretty amazing. Like, especially when you catch like a bigger fish, or you have a really good day and you catch a multiple fish, to have to eat them all that week is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And to be able to, pull a bag out whenever you want it, whenever there's a need, it's a pretty good luxury to be able to have. It's a great piece of technology. I will get into the whole defrosting side of things, because that was something that I'm just like, I've had all these, amazing fish that I've looked after. I've done all the prep work, and then I've defrosted them, and it was probably in that danger zone. I just chucked them in the sink for the day. I've got home, they're room temperature. God knows how long they've been room temperature for. And yeah, they aren't as good as, I'm like, geez, I did everything right. And I just never thought about the defrosting process itself. It's such a good way to make sure you've completed the process like fully, thoughtfully, and you've put all this effort in. It's now time to reap the benefits, because you just defrosted it in the fridge. You reckon that's the way to go?
Yeah, in the fridge. So because you've frozen it, it's going to be at a really low temperature. So we do recommend slowly defrosting it in the fridge. So around 10 to 12 hours, like you chuck it in before work or before bed. Try and minimize the bacteria growth. And you want to keep the temperature like roughly like steady with the fish. Like you don't want to drop it down all of a sudden to room temperature. It'll have to be like a gradual process. So that really prevents it from being mushy or overly soft as well.
Yeah. And you're never going to completely be able to dry out your fish before defrosting it. So when you defrost it in that lukewarm environment like the room temperature, it just ends up sitting in its own sauce for a bit, as opposed to in that bacteria safe environment in the fridge. But even before you chuck it in your vac sealer bags, there's a bunch of things that you can do to get as much moisture from that fish as possible. So, did you have any tips around ways before vac sealing to reduce moisture?
I found it's pretty interesting. Like your best friend really is the freezer with when it comes to vacuum sealing. So we recommend chucking your fish in the freezer for like 2 hours before vacuum sealing. So either that could be in a container. You're not going to fully freeze it. You're just going to freeze it for just 2 hours, just long enough. It really retains its moisture, juice, and like shape. That's really what we recommend. And then you vacuum seal it after the 2 hours in the freezer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's the same thing. We would also recommend patting it dry before you vacuum seal it as well, just so it doesn't freeze the oils or the liquids with the fish. So patting it dry is definitely also something you look out for. But especially if you're about to vacuum seal it, you can chuck in some marinade with it or some lemon and herbs, and the vacuum seal really infuses the fish with the flavors of the marinade or, you know, the herbs or the lemon. So that's really something, it really penetrates the fish when vacuum sealed, especially, yeah.
We've talked about on the potty before, but leaving your fish in a tray in the fridge as well and letting that moisture drip away, patting dry with a paper towel. I've heard of one person that actually vac sealed their fish with paper towel on it. I'm not sure if that is a good idea unless it's like a really organic product, but I've never tried it, but that could be a way of just keeping the moisture away. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think definitely that. Yeah, I think definitely that'll work. It's all about trialing, really.
Yeah,
it's all about trialing and what works. I guess it depends as well how you prepare it as well,
and what your results are. But it's going to last longer if there's less moisture in it. So don't just those guys that were vac sealing at sea. It might be really convenient, but also it might not be vac sealing at the fish's optimal state. So looking at leaving it a day to allow that moisture to come out of the fish and then it will reduce spoilage. But even vac sealing and then putting it in the fridge, if you plan on eating it later that week, it's going to be fresher. Yeah. So this is not just frozen stuff as well, hey?
No, definitely not. Yeah, so the temperature, so below 4 degrees it greatly reduces bacteria growth below. So in the fridge, basically. So as long as it's below the 5 degrees, which is a fridge, it'll greatly reduce it. So, definitely, you can definitely eat it later that week. But I can't recommend anything because we're not food technologists, but, and obviously for, other reasons as well. If people, I don't want people to get sick, but we have heard of people like marinating fish in the vacuum bags and leaving it for 4 to 5 days in the fridge or up to a week. And then they, get it out, cook it normally.
And that marinating idea is epic, hey? Because the flavor has nowhere to go. There's no air for it or space for it to drizzle off. It just has to go into the flesh because that suction, that air pressure. I did it with a bunch of different things, actually. With that kingfish, like I said, I cut one section that was going to be used for fish tacos. I made a taco rub, and that's already dry, so it was really easy. I just put the taco rub on and whack them in the freezer. They're sitting there, and I'll be able to whip them out whenever I want to do tacos, and that flavor would really have impregnated the fish. I also did it with sashimi that I planned on using in 2 or 3 days' time. I just whacked a few bits of lemon on the fillets before vac sealing. It sealed tight, and then that flavor actually, was right in the fish. It didn't really damage the texture at all, and the sashimi was so fresh. It was absolutely delicious. But then you can also do wet marinades as well, can't you?
Wet marinades, yeah. So our vacuum sealers, they call it outer chamber vacuum sealers. They can't do liquids, so that's one thing we don't recommend doing, like soups, for example. But marinades, you can marinate your fish normally just in the container, let it sit. and you just grab the fish out, put it in the vacuum sealer, and it'll be fine. And there's even like a function on our vacuum sealer to pulse vacuum, so it doesn't vacuum. You can do a custom amount of vacuum, so you make sure that the liquids doesn't go into the machine because then it breaks the
Yeah,
machine.
you can control that.
So you can control that and how much vacuum there is. But that really, but that like, especially with a wet marinade, it's great. Like it really infuses the fish. Like we've had a lot of feedback with that. It speeds up the marination process like dramatically.
And if you really wanted to like store it, so you wanted to get all the air out, you could get your fillets, put them in a bowl with a marinade. Like say I made a peri peri sauce, as I often do these days. Made a peri peri sauce, dunk the fish in the peri peri sauce, and let it sit in that bowl for a little bit. But then take it out, so it's still got a light coating, but it's not sitting in that juice. And then put it in your sealer bags, and you're going to get a really good result where it's been sitting in that flavor for an extended period of time, but it's all preserved really safely. And so when you pull it out in months, God knows how long time, it's still in prime condition, and that flavor is just going to be beautiful. And even like, getting some herbs from the garden, whacking them in, dill always goes good with your fish, so stuff like that. Bit of parsley, definitely ideal things to be adding as flavor enhancers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Especially with the vacuum sealing, it really does infuse the fish. I mean, it has nowhere else to go really. So it's really going to infuse the fish, especially when you freeze it as well. It really like locks into the fish over the months or a year or two that you have it in the freezer. And then you cut open the bag and you have that instant whiff of just the herbs and the marinade that you prepared, 1 or 2 years ago. It's great.
It's crazy, hey?
Yeah.
Actually, I've got a little experiment that I whipped up a couple of days ago where I got a vac seal bag from you guys, and I got the same fillet of kingfish. I cut it into 3 equal portions, and I got one that I put in a vac sealer, one that I put in sandwich bag, just like a lock seal sandwich bag, and then one that I wrapped in cling wrap. And in about 3 months' time, I'm going to whip that out, and we're going to revisit which ones have been impacted more and which are fresher. And obviously, my ticket is that the vac sealed bags are going to be a lot fresher and look like they've just come out of the ocean. What do you think the other bags might have as a result of their lack of, or that maybe their oxygen, the cold hitting them?
So I think the cling wrap will come in second, well, if we want to rank them, but there will be still noticeable freeze burn. So freezer burn is especially not something you want. It will give off that fishy smell, and it won't have the same consistency and texture as it would have on the day that you've caught it. So definitely, but the cling wrap's tighter than the sandwich bag because you can really cling wrap it, but it will still be exposed to the oxygen. So there will be a slight deterioration in texture and flavor, I would say. But the sandwich bag, I would say that would have the highest air exposure. So that'll probably experience the most freezer burn, and it'll have like a dry and tough texture, and it will definitely have a big decline in taste and appearance, I would say, compared to the other two. Yeah.
Because it won't just be like the eye test. Like I will cook them all in the same pan or whatever, and then actually try each one to see. But it is definitely a visual impact. I've seen plenty of freezer burn from my past experiences before vac sealing, and you can see like this hard and white sections of fish that have been overexposed. And back in the day, I used to use like sandwich bags in like a pool of warm water and try and get the air to suck out, and I'd even use a straw or something to suck a bit more extra air out. But you're never going to do the same job because you can't have that instant seal, and there's always going to be a bit of air in there, and it's just not the right way to go. Like just pull your finger out and get a vac sealer because it's definitely the way to go. So I'll be really interested to see how that goes. And then I'm going to do another experiment too, which we'll revisit around that time. Is I want to actually go into this whole defrosting thing, and I want to get one bag out and defrost it in the fridge. I want to get one bag, defrost it in the sink, just and one that I actually take out frozen and then put it in some water, some cold water, or just room temperature water to get that back to room temperature, and then compare the flavor and if there was any serious impact. And I'll get some photos and stuff to show the case what actually happens when it comes to defrosting. But yeah, I'm really interested to see if that danger zone or what's going on. But defrosting and the way we vac seal, I'm confident that it is worthwhile just because I've done it for so long. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it'll be still interesting to see how much of a difference it makes, and yeah, go from there.
There is another way to defrost fish in a besides the fridge. It is a lot faster of a method, but it's with a sous vide cooker, so warmer water. So so you can cook your fish in warm water in the bag, so it can't be exposed to the water itself. But in the vacuum bag at 60 degrees, you can cook your fish for around 20 minutes, depending on how you want your fish cooked, really. So you can up the temperature or lower the temperature, but we recommend like adding it for an extra 15 minutes if it comes from frozen.
Yeah, okay. And so when you do sous vide, you put it in frozen, do you?
Yeah, can do. Yeah, so you just got to add it in 15 minutes before.
Or just like with sous vide, it's going to give you a more consistent result. And this isn't just for seafood. This is for any like steaks. You can do the same. It's cooking in a warm bath of water, right?
Yeah, warm bath of water. Yeah, with the bag. Yeah, in
In
the
the
bag.
sealed
Yeah,
bag, so you
yeah,
haven't taken it out. It's still in the bag, and
yeah,
that just it cooks it through.
yeah.
What's the benefits of sous vide?
So sous vide basically is you're like in a bath of warm water, and ensures the flavor and all the juices stay really in the fish. So when you're cooking a steak or a lot of meats, it shrinks when you put it on the grill. That doesn't happen with sous vide. Like all the juices and everything really stays in the fish because you have cooked it in this sous vide machine or circulator.
You could do it with just a pot of water and a thermometer, just keeping it around that 50-degree, 60-degree mark consistently. Just find how you can maintain that temperature.
Yeah. Or there are specific sous vide cookers that you can attach to your pots and pans, and it warms up the water for you. So that really, it's a great way of cooking. A lot of restaurants do it because they do a bulk amount of meats, and they put it in these bags. They sous vide cook it, put it in the fridge, and then it's already cooked. All you need to do is sear it. So you take it out of the bag and you just put a quick sear on the fish. So all the flavors really stay inside. It doesn't shrink on the grill, and you're just putting the sear on the fish. So it's already all cooked. So you don't really have to time it. It's just cooked. You just got to sear it, and then all the juices are just are trapped inside. Completely different way of cooking, really.
Something I'm really keen to try actually, and I guess if you did it with some of the marinated fish, that would even enhance that flavor penetration even further, because you're going to have to keep it in this water bath for maybe an hour, and again it's going to be trial and error, and
Yeah.
probably some fish would lend themselves more to it. I'd imagine that some of the flakier fish wouldn't handle it as well, but like your tunas, kingfish, stuff that have that really solid, not so soft texture, like tailor would be too soft and flaky, I would imagine, or whiting, I would steer clear of it. But those
Yeah.
those stronger fillets would be able to cop that prolonged slow cooking method.
Yeah, definitely. You can do it with the softer fish, but like with the flakier fish, but there are just different settings that you got to keep in mind. Like the harder fish are nicer. It does cook better
Yeah.
with like the a bit tougher meats, like especially if you have a bad cut of meat, like steak, for example, you can really cook something out of that with the sous vide method, with the sous vide cooking
And it
method.
won't be
So
tough and
exactly. So
fibrous.
there is an app as well that actually you can chuck in your food and the dimensions. I mean, like the thickness of your fillet, and tells you what degrees and how long you should cook it for in the water. So it's like an air fryer.
What's the app?
It's called sous vide.
Just and it will help you out with that. All right, I'm going to get that app.
It's similar to like an air fryer. So, when you're air frying, I used to air fry salmon actually. You just chuck it in and forget about it and you can cook all the rest of your condiments on the side, really. It's like that with sous vide. You really just forget about it. You have your timer on it. The water stays consistent depending on what equipment that you have for it. But then you come back after 20 minutes and it's cooked. All you got to do is take it out of the bag and sear it off.
Right. It sounds too easy for like perfectly consistent cooked. And I imagine on a large scale, if you're cooking for a lot of people, you just keep whipping them out, bang, bang, bang.
Oh, yeah.
But like, I guess the question probably on everyone's lip is, I don't really want to eat something that's been sitting in a plastic bag in warm environment. But I wouldn't be keen on it. But your bags are BPA free. Am I right in saying that?
BPA free, yeah, food safe, completely food safe, yeah. I used to, yeah. They can even be microwave. I used to like freeze lasagnas, poke a few holes in them, and put them in the microwave.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
And it's the moisture that really comes. You would need to poke holes, otherwise the bag will expand.
Yeah.
But it really keeps the moisture in there, so you can really put it in a microwave or cook it in hot water. It's totally safe.
Well, BPA is a real nasty sort of a product chemical that, it buggers up. It's had a pretty big impact. I think it's similar to Teflon where it interferes with the estrogen levels and stuff like that. So like we're learning about these things, and then there's still some products that have it. Like my cheap one, I was freezing in my vac sealer bags that certainly had BPA in them. So even if you have a vac sealer already, I would suggest looking at Pac Foods or any company that can do BPA free vac bags, because you're freezing it in this thing. Like I've got a child. I've probably been exposed to heaps of BPA in the past, but I'm going to try and make it an effort where possible to not have it. But yeah, my little kid doesn't need to have it, and he loves his fish, so I'm going to keep that in mind big time.
Yeah, exactly. You do not want those forever chemicals in your body.
Yeah, I tell you another thing I love doing with the vac sealer is using those embossed bags. So like the thicker bags to do whole fish. People think, you got to, I like a 2 to 3 kilo snapper. What I do is I get some kitchen shears or a heavy duty scissors. I cut the tail off. That reduces the size, so I don't need to use as much of the bag as possible. And I also look at cutting some of the sharper points, so maybe the dorsal and pectoral fins right back. It will reduce the volume, and it will mean that it's a flatter thing as well, flatter thing that I'm sealing, so there'll be less bits that point out and could puncture the seal. But those embossed, it's thicker, so it's like a stronger bag as opposed to just the micro channel bags which are great for the fillets.
Especially if you want to do whole fish, like a long fish, and then you really want to cut the bag at how long you want it, seal one end, and it becomes a bag. Really, it's just like a custom bag. So that's really a popular one, especially with the embossed as well. The sharp bones or the prawn heads even apparently just completely destroy the normal thinner bags. Yeah. Really great job against sharp objects and bones.
Well, I look forward to trying it, because in the past I really just marinated. I didn't marinate. I just froze fillets and whatever else, and then took them out and then worked with them. I'm looking forward to see how like the taco rub works on my fish, and like I know the lemon worked when I just put it in the fridge for the sashimi. But I'm looking forward to just trying a few bits and bobs and seeing where we land. If someone didn't want to drop $500 or $450 odd, I think it is, for the semi industrial machine, they might not fish as often, or they might be only trying to do a couple of whiting or brim or flathead, as opposed to one kingfish where you might need to do 10, 15 bags, which is what happened with me. And you want a machine that's up to the task. You've got cheaper models as well that are more for domestic use?
For like home users, like domestic users. So there's our lower range machine is the VS 105. So that's really for your domestic users if you don't use too much. But that's it's only 150 including GST. So that's one of our cheaper ones. And there is a mid-range one as well, which is the VS 300, which is it's got great functionality, and it's got a lot more custom custom settings. But yeah, it's an in between the cheaper one and the expensive one, the 603. But the 603 is definitely for semi-commercial or heavy domestic use. It's more it does last longer, it's more robust. But these cheaper range definitely still do the job. So,
Yeah, so it's just about knowing how often you're
yeah.
going to be using it, what your application is going to be. Um, yeah. I tell you one thing that I really love about it, and you said, doing your lasagna. I quite often will cook a meal at home, believe it or not. No, I cook a meal at home before I go camping, and then I just vac seal the meal. It could be pasta, it could be, a bit of a stew or something, and then I just keep it in the bag and then put it in boiling water, or heat it up, and it locks in that freshness as if you've just cooked it then and there, and you're taking it camping. You don't need to bring all these ingredients. You don't need to. It's just literally bring your bag, and you've got these amazing pre-made meals. Yeah, well, I did it on one of the pack walks I did with the school. We walked and I just whacked it in the back and was able to have a really nice meal in front of the kids, and they were blowing up deluxe. But yeah, that's something that you can definitely use for, you know, taking up less space and time when you're camping and just want to be outdoors enjoying.
For like normal house use, like vacuum sealing, veggies or fruits even, or, you know, if you really want to marinate anything, that's really the way to good people go. So
I was thieving mangoes off people's trees left, right, and centre, which I'd never encourage doing. But I tell you what, I vac sealed more than a few mango. Pulled one out this week from last season, frozen mangoes, and just in a vac sealer, save space. And I was like, oh, I thought I ate all these, and yeah, just had a beautiful smoothie down the track.
I used to freeze bananas, and after like maybe 3 to 6 months, it's not the same. Like it's just got freezer burn, it smells, and it's not the same.
Mm. That's pretty interesting. Like, I think about freezer burn, I think about fish only, but all that stuff is still going to get the same. Like the freezers, it's an intense environment. I mean, when you got those low temperatures, it's going to rub off on anything. Um, you know, the other thing I like to do is to save money is when I'm buying meat. If you go to a butcher and get like a sirloin, it costs so much. But if you get a whole roll of sirloin and cut it yourself and cryovac it yourself, it goes from $40 a kilo to like, I've had it for $20 a kilo just because of the labor that you're reducing, and their time vac sealing, their time cutting and portioning. You can just do all that yourself, and even getting a cow or whatever and going halves it with a mate or something. Whatever you do, particularly your hunters. I mean, the hunters. Scott Thomas, the editor of Fishing World, he sent me a photo last night of this beautifully portioned bit of venison that he'd had from last winter, that he's just pulled out and it's still going from one or two animals that he's taken. He's been able to feed his family for a while. So, I mean, it's definitely worthwhile.
Or unpredictable hospitality, like they can't always keep it for for what they expect. So they really, especially for restaurants and cafes, they do have to resort to vacuum sealing. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Especially, it's just a lot cheaper, as you say, to buy in bulk.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Matty, I reckon that could be us in terms of the vac sealing. I definitely will revisit this, and I'll give you a bell of how the results to that little experiment go. They'll be in Fishing Worlds at some point, just a couple of images, and I'll get on social media to let you guys know. I'll show some examples as well of me doing some cryovacking and some different techniques I've used. Well, one thing I forgot to say is cryovacking with your fish skin on is really important. Because I always label my fish. If I skin off, I just get a texture and sort of write whether kingfish and the date. But say you've caught snapper and kingfish in the same day, you can easily identify them based on the skin. But when you put the skin in, don't scale the fish because that actually damages the flesh. Just keep the scales on, and then you can skin it easily once it's defrosted. But it also helps to identify it. Plus, you have the option of skin on. I mean, skin on fish is beautiful. Like having the option to have crispy skins I mean, that's the ticket. But yeah, that's another little tip that I'd have.
Reducing food waste and the saving space and
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm into it, and I'm really into the satisfaction that comes from being able to pull out something that I've caught from the freezer that is perfectly portioned, that I know that I put the time and effort in to make sure that it was going to be of a good standard. Like even those little offcuts to make little fish nuggets, if I know that that's there, uh, I can plan my weekly meals around that and yeah, be really well organized. I've got a chest freezer, which, when I'm fishing regularly, I top it up a lot and we eat a lot of fish. It's a really healthy thing to do, and why not preserve it so you can have it when you need it? All right, Matty. Thanks so much for jumping on board. Appreciate your time. Have a great day.
All
Cheers.
good. Cheers, Zach.
Bye.
You too. Cheers.